conflicting stories.
Okay, so I'm gonna get into a theory here. I want to just kind of wrap up everything. So he gets to Montana. They're kind of filming as they're traveling on their way to Idaho. He's texting his dad normally. Then all of a sudden, when they arrive in Idaho, late at night around 11 o'clock, he just sends a, "Hey, I'm here. Made it." Normal text, I would argue, like, "Hey, I'm going to bed. Got here. Just letting you know.
Yeah.
Done." But then for some reason, around 1 o'clock in the morning, he texts a video of a river, which, okay, no big deal. But then at 3, he calls his dad to say he made it there okay,
Yep.
which is weird because he already told him he was there.
Yeah.
So now you have that stuff. His dad says, "Hey, we'll talk in the morning." He calls again, right? At like 5? Or he texts him?
He texts him and says he's coming back now. He's cutting his trip short by several weeks, yeah.
So based on that, I'm going to go a couple different levels here. Based on that, and then how they wouldn't let the film crew talk to him and how Simon was acting, it sounds like he was either screwing up or at least screwing up in the eyes of Simon on the days shooting prior to getting to Idaho. Now, this is me making up a story. So none of this is fact. This is me assuming things just to let the listeners know.
Yeah.
I wonder if he gets to Idaho and he knows like he's getting fired or cut from the set early and it's bugging him. So he can't sleep. He's texting his dad. He doesn't want to like bring his dad in on it, but he's kind of in his head about it. Whatever happened is messing him up a bit. Maybe the guy said, "You know what? I want you out of here by Wednesday. You can finish up these last few days." I'm assuming they get paid on a daily basis if it's like a side gig type thing. So maybe
like freelance work.
So maybe they just said, "You know what? I'll keep you on till Wednesday, but you're doing a terrible job. I hate you." Just being a jerk. I'm just assuming again. This Simon guy could be the nicest guy in the world, so I don't want anyone to like freak out. But I'm just making up a story here that might make sense. So he already knows he's done. He texts Des, "Hey, I'm coming home Wednesday." Trying to be upbeat, but maybe he's really bent out of shape about it. And then he's just in his head. Maybe he's getting yelled at still while they're filming, and he just cracks on that day of filming. Like maybe he just snapped and just ran off into the like screw this crap and just couldn't. Like I've seen videos of employees. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but like I've been yelled at by managers.
Snap.
Yeah, I've been yelled at. I don't care. Like, yeah, they're gonna yell at me. I might be like, "Oh, what a jerk." But like, if I'm not doing my job and I get yelled at when I was younger, I'd be like, "Oh, maybe I need to do a little bit better of a job." And if it was somebody I didn't like, I'd quit my job. But I've also seen people that like literally lose their mind, like break down if they're not doing a good job and their managers don't like them. So if he was of the type of person where he needed to feel like he was doing a good job and feel like he was contributing and he wasn't getting any of that from his manager, maybe he snapped and ran off. All right, I'm going to cut there, and I want to hear what you think, because I have different theories after that, the running part.
So I have several theories, and I kind of group them from most explainable to absolutely crazy, and some of the crazy ones in this case are really interesting. I am excited to talk about them. We'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
So I think there's 4 explainable reasons of for what happened to Terrence. I think theory number 1 is, like you were saying, either suicide or mental breakdown. So the police so he had a journal that was in his room. And the law enforcement read through it and they dismissed it as indecipherable rants and gave it back to his parents. His parents showed it to the news reporters, and there were several mentions of the phrase "Great Reset" in the journal towards the end of the entries. So he mentioned...
Well, you left this part out of the story.
Well, I mean, I wanted to save it to the end.
All right.
So he writes... He was tired of traveling and was ready to head back home and settle down. Several entries in the journal. He was tired of London life. He was tired of the travel. He kept referring it to the Great Reset. So you can see in his journal that he's having some kind of anguish with the way his life is currently.
Okay. It's like having a quarter life crisis.
Quarter life crisis. He's sick of all this travel. He was talking about, he ranted about the kind of the celebrity lifestyle in London. He didn't like it and all of that kind of stuff. So I think suicide and mental breakdown is a very explainable theory. A lot of people suffer from mental health issues, and you can be really close friends or family with them, and you don't even know it until something happens.
Sure.
You hear about it all the time. They seem normal on the outside. On the inside, they're, they have serious issues. So I think that, he could have been just standing on that cliff, kind of looking off into the, the mountains, and just said, F it, and just started running.
Okay.
Not even so that, I think that's theory number one. Theory number two, drug use. Now, there's really no mention of any type of drug abuse or drug use in any of the research I did. He did make mention in his journal that he was sick of drug use. It didn't have a context. I don't know if he was like, maybe his friends in London, he was sick of that environment.
Okay, but like they didn't find any in his backpack outside of the over-the-counter painkillers, which are like Tylenol.
Yeah, it was like Tylenol or Advil or something.
Okay.
And yeah, there was no reference by family or friends that he was a drug user. But I don't think you can rule out, some people have really wild reactions to, acid or psychedelics or, things like that. Is it outside the realm of possibility that someone on the filming crew
or even like cocaine?
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I don't know that. I'm trying to think of some, mind-altering drugs that would maybe scare you and cause you to run.
Sure.
Something like acid, I guess. And I've never done acid,
like
so I don't know.
DMT, mushrooms, any type of psychedelic.
Any type of mind-altering drug that might cause somebody to, maybe if they have an underlying mental condition, to snap. So I don't think, maybe it's not outside the realm of possibility. Maybe he made friends with someone on the crew that had acid with him, or who knows?
Sure.
There's no evidence of this.
Okay.
So I'm not slandering him. I'm just saying I think you can't rule it out.
Yep.
It's explainable. That would be explainable.
Yep. No, I'm with you.
Yeah. So I think third possibility, he developed a fear of somebody on the crew. Somebody maybe was verbally or physically abusive to him or threatened him. Mm-hmm. And he just got so scared that he ran off, and maybe he was going to run off and had a plan to like get to the road or something and got lost. I think, maybe that's maybe not as explainable. It would maybe be the reason why they didn't let the crew talk to anyone. I mean,
okay.
I still don't understand why the crew wasn't allowed to speak with anybody. It makes it seem like something happened between him and the crew.
Yeah, that's the big thing that I didn't get into. So like up until that point, it's like, okay, he might be having these issues, fine. And Simon does the story if he's a production manager and he's like, all right, I'm going to be the one that talks to people. Everyone shut your trap. Sounds like they're trying to get their story straight.
But it would be hard to keep, to silence 12 people plus that lady from town. You would think somebody would say something.
Yeah.
I think, that's another explainable possibility. Then for my fourth explainable, I put exposure. And this would be kind of like a sub-theory. If one of the other three happened, I think it would be highly likely that he would suffer from exposure based on how he was dressed. And I learned a new term. I didn't know of this. We've talked about paradoxical undressing.
Yep.
But apparently people who are in severe hypothermia also do something called terminal burrowing. Where they'll
go to ground?
They'll go to ground level and they'll like try to burrow under like logs or like dig a hole or like go into like a cave area. They try to get into like a burrow. And search and rescue teams that search for people in, cold climates, they actually talk about this quite often because it makes it harder for you to find the people.
Yeah.
Even if they've passed, they'll still be alive while they're burrowing in, and then it makes it really hard for people to find their remains. Maybe he, for whatever reason, went out into the wilderness and he suffered severe hypothermia and then burrowed down because we said it was real thick.
Yeah, and he could just be like deep under a bunch of deadfall, and you're not going to find someone like that.
It doesn't explain why the tracking dogs might not find him, but...
Yeah, that doesn't explain, because if you're doing that, you're definitely shedding your scent and skin and things like that, and they're searching right away without any hindrance, so you think they'd be able to find them right away, but...
Yeah, so I think if if one of the other explainable theories happened, I think exposure would become a major issue for him. One of the theories I think is possible, but not highly likely, would be animal attack. Anytime there's predators wherever you're hiking, it's a possibility, but these predators really aren't, black bears are probably not going to attack them.
Mm-hmm.
There would be, we always say this, there would be evidence. You'd see evidence of an attack.
No, 100% agree. I think that, like, if there's an animal attack, it makes it, it's unfortunate, but it makes it easier to find.
Yeah, so possible, likely, probably not.
Yeah.
Less likely, I said murder by one of the crew. I think this is just less likely because this is a high-profile film crew working for the Discovery Channel, filming a major TV show. If somebody on the crew murdered somebody, I think that would be like headline news.
Yeah.
We would have heard about it.
Well, and it would have came out by now.
Yeah. I mean, especially
with that
Gold
many
Rush
people.
Gold Rush is one of their most popular, Discovery Channel's popular shows. So I think it's a theory, but I think it's very unlikely. So now we get into two of the crazy theories.
Yeah, this is what I'm interested in, the unrealistic, but I mean, technically plausible because you can't prove them wrong.
Yeah. So, of course, I found both of these theories, deep diving through Reddit. And at first I'm like, this isn't real. And then I did more research, and they're actually pseudoscience to back up some of these theories. But the first theory is called Call of the Void. So this actually is more of a real theory than the next one, Panic in the Woods. Sounds like a band. Call of the Void is also known as high place phenomena. It says, since people often feel it when standing somewhere high up, you could also experience this type of impulse when doing other things that involve a high risk of danger. For example, Call of the Void can involve thoughts or urges to jerk the steering wheel and turn into oncoming traffic while driving, jumping into a very deep water from a boat or bridge, stand on train or subway tracks or jump in front of a train, cut yourself when holding a knife or sharp object, put metal objects into electrical outlets, or stick your hand into fire or a garbage disposal. Jeez. So they say when these urges come up in normal people, you quickly counter them, telling yourself you'd never do that. You know what would happen in any of those scenarios, but you still think about doing it, however quickly the thought passes.
Sure.
And I read this, and I used to commute, to work when I worked with you all the time, on the freeway. And every once in a while, you do get a weird urge. Like, you see that big pillar on the side of the road, you're like, oh, what if I just... Then you're like, what are you talking about?
Mike, are you okay?
No.
You know what I think of? Tommy Boy. I just want to jerk the wheel into a GT bridge embankment. When he's freaking out that he can't get any sales. Oh, man. Okay.
So I think that's an interesting theory. If somebody has an underlying mental health issue.
Yeah, if he's already teetering on the edge and then he gets that to hit him at the worst pot, like perfect storm. I don't say that. I don't say that's very crazy because I've kind of heard of that before. I never heard of what it was called, but I've heard about it in reference to really high places, like the urge to like push a friend off a cliff. I always think about that when we go hiking. I'm like, does Mike want to push me off this cliff right now? Like, you think about it, you would never do it ever, but like it crosses your mind for a split second. You almost are embarrassed that you think about it. But I've read about that in like Outside Magazine. That's just it's a weird phenomenon that we have. Yeah. So if you are already a little unstable, you got a lot of crap going on, take my earlier theory to heart, and then all of a sudden he's going to take a leak off this cliff. He's just like, screw it, and just jumps and just starts sprinting. Like he loses it. He snaps. Yeah. I could see that as a plausible theory.
Yeah, so it's an interesting theory. I'd never really heard of it before, but I kind of, when it went into kind of what you're thinking in those places, like we've all been hiking where you're kind of on a cliff and you're looking over and yeah, so that is, I guess that's not as crazy as I thought. Yeah. The next one's crazy. Okay. This theory is called Panic in the Woods. And according to the blog, The Paranormal Guide, so you already know where it's going.
All right.
Panic in the Woods has been associated with the pagan god Pan, protector of wild places, whose unseen presence inspires causeless terror. Victims experience an overwhelming feeling of paranoia, such as a sinister force nearby, and a sense of imminent danger. This usually leads to the person to flee the area, desperately seeking out civilization. One common characteristic of panic is that people often describe that the woodlands will go completely silent, deafening the witness before the loud pitch sound sets in a few moments later. Deafening silence and paranoia in the woods are related to the real-life cryptid Goatman and another group of paranormal monsters known as the Skinwalkers. I think we talked about them in an episode.
Skinwalkers in the episode. And I've actually been in the woods where I've had it go completely silent, and it is terrifying. Because when you're out in the woods, even when it's peaceful, but if you really start to focus, there's a lot of sound happening.
Yep.
And I've read it somewhere, a funny statement of saying, like, it's basically the sound of billions of insects mating. But that's kind of like, it's funny when you put it that way, because when you really listen, it's just lots of low level noise. It's like low level white noise, or I think they call it black noise when it's not high pitched. But I've been in the woods several times, either hunting or hiking, where it goes silent, where everything stops. And it is terrifying, even if it's during the day, because like your brain can't process it. Like, you don't know you were listening to noise, but then all of a sudden there's nothing, and it really messes with your head.
And, that could be kind of, maybe it's related to human psychology.
Sure.
That when you're alone out, in the woods, your brain tends to, maybe wander and kind of come up with these fantasies, and maybe for normal people it doesn't turn into anything, but maybe just like,
so you're
the
saying
other
I'm not a
theory.
normal person, is that
Well, no, you don't.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah, you haven't run off in the woods and disappeared.
Yeah.
But maybe for somebody who's unstable, it causes them, like the other theories, to snap.
Yeah, like if I was there right now because I'm losing my mind with 6 kids stuck in a house, like if all of a sudden I'm just gonna run, just start running.
Yeah, so those are my crazy theories. I know we gotta probably wrap this up quick because we're running longer. Just to really quickly go into law enforcement theory, they thought he had a panic attack or mental breakdown.
Yeah, and that kind of plays into what we were just talking about, really, if you think about it.
Theory law enforcement had was that he wanted to get lost. They don't know if he was suicidal, but they think something happened to cause him to run into the woods mentally. He's gone. They looked for him, couldn't find him. The family suspects foul play. They said the sheriff and the crew were very unhelpful. They think he was in an uncomfortable situation trying to get away. The parents have hinted that they think race played a role in this. The father went on a radio station, basically accused the detective of being racist.
So I'm sure that played into them saying, you know what, we're not interested in really investigating anymore if they're going to attack us. And it's just like when you start getting emotion in both sides, like you end up getting both sides not making good decisions. I
honestly don't blame the father for saying that. If you read the more detailed investigation about the case, all of the roadblocks and the sheriff, not getting the cell phone data, and, to Terrence Sr. seemingly not caring about the investigation, you might get that feeling.
Yeah.
I don't blame him for saying that. The sheriff responded in an email vehemently denying that race played any issue in the investigation and basically said, we're done talking to your family on this going forward, like communication's off.
Yeah.
So, just a lot of raw emotion. I don't blame, I think the people conducting the search and rescue operation, we've said this in lots of cases, they always try their hardest to find the people.
Yeah.
That's their number one goal, and they feel terrible when they don't find someone.
I think there's bad people out there, but as a whole, the majority of people are good.
Yeah.
So when you get enough people involved, you're not going to have a bunch of people just not caring about this kid that ran off, especially when you have a whole team of search and rescue people. That's their one job. It's what they wake up for. So they're going to give it their all. So
to wrap this all up, the final theory is it's not really a theory. I think, what if something more mysterious happened in this kind of 72-hour period? Because as 4 hours after Terrence went missing, Connie Johnson went missing just north of there, near Frog Mountain. Yep. And obviously, episode 20 covers that case. So if you've not listened to it, you should do that right away after this episode.
Absolutely.
She disappeared 4 hours after Terrence did. Then, on October 7th, so this is Sunday at approximately 5:30 p.m., Idaho County Sheriff's Office was advised of another overdue person, 42-year-old Jose Mendez Morales of Tacoma, Washington. He left his residence and was going to Elk City, Idaho. Jose checked in with his family from Grangeville on September 25th, but no one heard from him since. He normally checks in every 3 days. So he went missing in the Elk City area on October 7th at 5:30 p.m. That's when the law enforcement was notified. And strangely enough, earlier that year in April, 4 hunters went over the side of a road in their SUV into a river, and 2 of the hunters' bodies were recovered, but the other 2 are still missing to this day as well.
Wow, so there's
in that area
the Selway
too.
area, there's like something going on.
Yeah. So
Ooh, you know what? I do have to say this because I've been saying the last couple episodes, I'm tearing through the X-Files right now.
Yes.
I think that there is some government installation somewhere in that wilderness, and they are testing high-frequency wavelength mind control. And they're running tests, and it's affecting people of a certain blood type within a certain radius to all be attracted to the tower.
Huh.
That is my X-Files. We need Fox Mulder and Dana Scully on the case.
That's crazier than any of the theories I read. I will wrap this up with saying that law enforcement reassured everyone that none of these cases were connected.
Which just makes you feel like they're all connected, just because they reassured us they're not.
Yeah. And it's funny because they've been telling all the families, they've been discouraging the families to come to Idaho to help, to inquire about.
See, that's weird, and I don't want to
stuff.
make it sound like, because we laugh and goof on this show. We do take this seriously. I don't like the way they're responding to these cases, and I don't know if it's just that law enforcement agency and they're all just a bunch of jerks, but it makes it extremely curious to me that they are either not interested in investigating this at all, or they're actively pushing people away from attempting to find their loved ones, and that is suspicious. That is very suspicious. I can understand that, hey, we're not going to be able to help you. If you want to come walk around in the woods, be my guest. It's a free country.
Yeah.
But to actively try and repulse people from coming there, that just raised red flags to me. That is a big red flag.
The only thing I can think of is they're probably so short-staffed. They're dealing with 3 disappearances. They're probably if we have all these people coming out here, we're going to be looking for more missing people.
And that could be totally the human element of it. It's they've probably never dealt with this ever, and then all of a sudden in the same year they have these major operations. They're not prepared to do it. You have one of the family members calling them a racist and saying, because these families are frustrated. Maybe the sheriffs are everyone's starting to get emotional, and it's just not a good mix. It's not good juju for what's going on. And on the flip side of that coin, though, if your job's law enforcement, you got to suck it up, bucko, and optics are very important, and that's your job. And if you can't handle that stress, then maybe you shouldn't be doing that job. The family's job isn't to be calm and composed. I'm not saying their job's supposed to panic, but guess what? If any of my kids go missing, no matter what age there is, I'm not going to be rational, maybe. You know what I mean? I'm not because I'm going to be emotional. I'm going to be a nervous wreck. I'm going to be losing it. So I might say things that might offend you. And I was a paramedic.
They're the trained professionals.
Yeah, I was a paramedic. I had people screaming at me and doing weird things to me, and you know what I had to do? Treat them with respect and help them. And just in my head, I always told myself, hey, if I had a drug addict, this guy doesn't mean it. He literally is on drugs. You can't take that stuff personally. So I hate putting motives in people's heads, but there's so many instances of them kind of pushing the stuff off where on its face, it seems shady to me, and I don't like it.
It's kind of where there's smoke, there's fire. That's
exactly.
It's kind of why isn't the crew allowed to talk to people? Why didn't they go after the cell phone data for Terrence? Why is the local law enforcement actively encouraging the family not to show up there?
Yeah, it's kind of one thing, okay, 2 things starting to get weird, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 instances of something. Okay, now I'm curious. Start answering my questions.
Yeah, why does the sheriff say one thing and another officer say the completely opposite thing?
Yeah.
None of it, there's so many conflicting reports and facts.
Yep.
And
And I do have to check myself because, I mean, I love movies and TV, and your brain immediately starts to make this giant, cool, like Hollywood conspiracy out of it. And I understand that that's not real life, but you also look at, declassified documents for certain things. It's not real life, but you bet your ass they've attempted weird shit in the past.
Yeah.
So
I definitely think you could make a movie out of like all these different disappearances in this area.
Yeah.
Like it could be a pretty cool thriller. Down the road,
absolutely.
maybe.